Camping is supposed to be about disconnecting from the chaos of everyday life and reconnecting with nature. But what happens when the peace of the wilderness is shattered by something far more sinister? From a mysterious figure stalking a Boy Scout to eerie laughter deep in the woods, these three terrifying true stories will make you think twice before pitching your tent again. So, grab a blanket, turn off the lights, and prepare yourself for some of the most bone-chilling camping tales you'll ever hear. You won't believe what happens next. This happened during a Boy Scout campout when I was 15. My friend, who was supposed to share the tent with me, had to cancel at the last minute, so I ended up pitching the tent and sleeping in it alone. After a long day of hiking, we returned to camp as the sun was setting. It was already dark by the time I was still struggling to set up the tent by myself. Eventually, someone came over to help me, and then we all ate dinner. After the cliched telling of scary stories around the campfire, we went to sleep. I was a bit pleased to have my own tent since it meant more room. I fell asleep quickly, but in the middle of the night, I was jolted awake by the sound of someone stomping around my tent. Initially, I assumed it was another scout going to relieve himself. Our scoutmasters had us pitch our tents far apart, so I was distant from my nearest scoutmates. The stomping continued, circling around my tent, making me certain someone was messing with me. When I called out to ask who it was, the stomping stopped, and whoever it was walked off into the woods. I almost followed, but decided it wasn't worth it and tried to go back to sleep. It was hard to drift off after that, and sure enough, the stomping returned, circling the tent once more. I was now furious. I unzipped the tent door, ready to confront whoever was causing the noise. Instead of finding another scout, I saw a grown man, probably around 6'5" and in his mid-30s. My heart raced, and I was too terrified to scream. The man gave me a creepy smile and brought his finger to his lips, signaling for me to be quiet. I turned and sprinted to my scoutmaster's tent, screaming all the way. My scoutmaster ran out before I even reached him, and I told him what had happened. He and another scoutmaster grabbed a hunting rifle and rushed to my tent, but the man was gone. However, they found tracks around my tent where the man had been walking. We were told to bring our tents closer together, practically on top of each other. The trip was cut short the next day, and we all went home. I have never gone camping since and never will again. Last summer, my friends and I went camping alongside the Willamette River. After a decent hike into the woods, we settled in for some night fishing, music, and a bit of drinking, enough to make everything seem hilarious. We finally called it a night somewhere past 2 a.m. I shared a tent with one friend while the other two shared another. We first heard them laughing about something, which was amusing at first, but soon it became annoying, so we yelled for them to shut up. One of them responded, "It isn't us." Startled, I realized it was the sound of only one person laughing, and it didn't sound like either of my friends. Even in my drunken state, I recognized how odd it was for someone to be this far out in the woods so late at night. The laughter grew closer and louder, approaching our campsite. My friend looked at me, clearly worried. Our other friends called over, saying they were getting. My boyfriend and I decided to go camping at the Gorge for some quality time. We had always gone with several other people, but this time it was just the two of us. As we prepared our gear for the mile hike to our campsite, two sketchy-looking men emerged from the trailhead, eyed us, and returned to their old Volkswagen camper van. I had a weird feeling, but shrugged it off as we made our way to the campsite. I had camped in the area a few times before and knew it well. We chose a spot that would keep us out of sight, though not out of earshot, from another camper further up the hill. As it started to get dark, I went to gather firewood. Suddenly, the man from the hill appeared out of nowhere, offering to sell us a bundle of firewood for $10. I laughed, considering we were surrounded by free wood, but he insisted, claiming they'd already cleared the area over the past few weeks. I asked how long he'd been camping there, and he said almost a month. He claimed he was alone, but when I mentioned hearing him yelling at someone earlier, he stammered, and said there were some other guys camping across the river. His stories didn't add up, and I had the creeps. He then took us to his camp, which was clearly set up for several people, not just one. He liked camping on the hill where he could see everything and everyone, including our campsite. As night fell, the man helped us start a fire, but I was eager for him to leave so I could process the situation. I whispered to my boyfriend that there was no way I could sleep knowing that sketchy man was right up the hill. My boyfriend convinced me to stay a little longer, but all night we heard twigs snapping around our tarp, as if someone was watching us. I was certain it was that man. We quietly packed up, leaving our tarp behind to avoid making noise. Just as we were ready to leave, the man yelled, "Leaving so soon?" We bolted, making our way out of there as quickly as possible. As we fled, the man shouted for us to come back, which only made us run faster. I was convinced we were about to be robbed, attacked, or worse. The next morning, I called the rangers and reported him. Fortunately, all he got from us was a new tarp.